Los Angeles, 1965. A restaurant called the Bat Rack. Evening. An 18-year-old black man sits across from his future coach. The young man is 7 feet 2 inches tall. His name is Lew Alcindor. You know him as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The man across from him is John Wooden, 54 years old, white, from Indiana, a devout Christian, a Navy lieutenant in World War II, the most successful college basketball coach in America. They couldn't be more different. New York and Indiana, black and white, young and old, Harlem streets and Midwestern farms. Two worlds sitting across a dinner table, trying to find common ground. What happens over the next 50 years doesn't just create a championship dynasty. It creates a friendship that neither of them expected. A friendship built on silence, on things unsaid, on a letter that took decades to find. This is the story of that letter, and what it taught both men about loyalty, about love, and about the things we never say to the people who matter most. The dinner starts well. Wooden talks about academics, not basketball, academics. He tells Alcindor he noticed his good grades, that UCLA is an excellent school, that he expects him to do well in the classroom, not just on the court. Alcindor is surprised. Most coaches don't care about grades. Most coaches see a 7'2" athlete and see a championship trophy. A ticket to glory, a means to an end. Wooden sees something else. A young man, a student, a person. They talk, they connect. 2 hours pass quickly. Then they leave the restaurant. An elderly white woman approaches. She's looking up at Alcindor, staring. Her eyes travel from his shoes to the top of his head. 7 feet 2 inches of black teenager, standing in a Los Angeles restaurant. She turns to Wooden. I've never seen one that tall. But she doesn't say one. She uses a different word. A word that Alcindor has heard before. A word that follows him everywhere. A word that reduces him from a human being to something less. Something other. Something to be observed like an animal in a zoo. The N-word. Right there. In front of his coach. In front of the man who is supposed to protect him, guide him, teach him. Wooden's face turns red. His jaw tightens. His hands clench at his sides. But he doesn't say anything. Alcindor watches, waits. Surely Wooden will respond. Surely this man who talks about character and integrity and doing the right thing will say something, will defend his recruit, will stand up against this casual cruelty. The silence stretches. The woman walks away. Wooden says nothing. They get in the car. The ride back to campus is quiet. Wooden grips the steering wheel. His knuckles are white. Something is happening inside him. A crisis of conscience. A collision between his Midwestern politeness and his sense of justice. Finally, he speaks. Please don't think all people are like that woman. Don't let ignorant people prompt an ignorant response from you. I know it's difficult, but let's not condemn everyone for the actions of a few. Alcindor listens, nods. Sure, coach. But inside, he's thinking something else. What was the point? There was nothing Wooden could say that he hadn't heard before, mostly from well-meaning white people. People who meant well but didn't understand. People who wanted to help but didn't know how. Wooden apologized, but the moment had passed. The woman had walked away, untouched. The insult had landed without consequence. Alcindor learned something that night. Coach Wooden had a good heart, but when it came to racism, he was on the sidelines in this game. That assessment would shape their relationship for decades. Alcindor respected Wooden, loved him even, but he never fully trusted that Wooden understood his world. The world of being black in America. The world of slurs and stares and constant reminders that you don't belong. 3 years later, Alcindor makes a decision that shocks the nation. 1968, the year Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated, the year Robert Kennedy is assassinated, the year America tears itself apart. Alcindor is invited to try out for the United States Olympic basketball team. Mexico City, the biggest stage in sports, the chance to represent his country, win a gold medal, be a hero. He says no. The backlash is immediate. Hate mail, death threats, racial slurs in letters and phone calls and newspaper columns. America is furious. This ungrateful athlete, this tall black man who has been given everything. How dare he refuse to play for his country? Alcindor doesn't waver. He explains his reasons. He cannot represent a country that doesn't represent him, that doesn't represent his people. He cannot bring honor to a nation that denies basic rights to millions of its citizens. The idea of going to Mexico to have fun seemed so selfish in light of the racial violence that was facing the country. He stays home, teaches basketball to kids in Harlem instead. While Tommy Smith and John Carlos raise their fists on the medal podium, Alcindor is in Brooklyn, working with underprivileged youth, doing what he believes actually matters. Through all of this, Wooden says nothing publicly. He respects Alcindor's choice, doesn't try to talk him out of it. The university issues a statement saying Alcindor declined because of class conflicts. A polite fiction. Everyone knows the real reason. But Wooden never voices his own opinion. Never tells Alcindor whether he agrees or disagrees. Never takes a stand. Alcindor assumes the worst. I just knew that he was very patriotic. He had been a lieutenant in the Navy during World War II. I couldn't imagine him endorsing my refusal to play in the Olympics and bring glory to the United States. Years pass. Alcindor becomes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, converts to Islam, changes his name, wins 6 NBA championships, 6 MVP awards, becomes the greatest scorer in basketball history. Wooden retires, wins 10 national championships, becomes a legend, the Wizard of Westwood. They stay in touch, phone calls, visits, a friendship that deepens with time. When Wooden's wife Nell dies in 1985, Kareem is one of the first people he calls. When Kareem's mother dies in 1997, Wooden is there. But the question of the Olympics never comes up. The question of whether Wooden supported him or judged him, whether he agreed with the protest or thought it was wrong. That question hangs between them, unanswered, for decades. Then Kareem receives a letter, 2017, 50 years after that dinner at the Bat Rack. Kareem is writing a book about his relationship with Wooden, researching, gathering documents, reaching out to people who knew them both. A woman contacts him, someone he has never met, someone he doesn't know. She has something to show him. Years ago, during the 1968 Olympics, this woman was angry. Like millions of Americans, she blamed Alcindor for his boycott. She wrote a letter to Coach Wooden, demanded to know why UCLA didn't discipline their star player, why Wooden allowed this disgrace to happen, why he didn't force Alcindor to represent his country. Wooden wrote back. The woman kept his letter all these years. Now she sends it to Kareem. He reads it once, reads it again, then again. Coach had defended me. He explained the kinds of racial slurs that were commonly used against me. He explained why I may have felt less than enthusiastic in representing my country in those tumultuous times. He defended my decision, supported my choice, stood up for me. For 50 years, Kareem believed Wooden disapproved of his protest. For 50 years, he thought his coach was too patriotic, too conservative, too bound by his World War II service to understand why a young black man might refuse to play for America. He was wrong. Wooden had defended him, privately, quietly, without ever telling him, without ever seeking credit or gratitude or acknowledgement. Oh, Coach, I wish I'd known how you felt, if only to ease the burden you'd taken on to defend me. Kareem sits with the letter, thinks about all those years, all those assumptions, all those times he thought he understood Wooden, when really he was reducing him to a stereotype. The conservative white man from Indiana, the patriotic Navy veteran, the man who stayed silent in the restaurant. I thought back on my own arrogance at thinking I understood the man by reducing him to the kind of easy stereotype. The very thing I'd been complaining about my whole life when it was done to me. Wooden never mentioned the letter, never brought it up, never said, "By the way, I defended you to that angry woman." Never used it to score points or claim credit or prove his loyalty. Most people would have made a point of telling me how they'd come to my defense, but Coach Wooden didn't care about receiving credit. A good deed was its own reward. Seeking praise or gratitude would have negated the deed. Someone once asked Wooden why he didn't take more credit for the things he'd done, why he hadn't been more outspoken about civil rights, why he stayed so quiet about his support for his black players. Wooden held up his thumb and index finger, so close together you could barely slide a piece of paper between them. That's how much credit I need. Kareem reads that letter in 2017. Wooden has been dead for 7 years. There's no one to thank, no one to apologize to, no one to have the conversation they never had. But the letter changes everything. Not the past. The past is fixed, but Kareem's understanding of the past, his understanding of the man who coached him, his understanding of what it means to support someone. Wooden wasn't on the sidelines after all. He was in the game, just playing it his own way, quietly, without fanfare, without credit. Reading it was one of the most touching moments in my life. 2 men, 50 years, 3 national championships, a friendship built across racial divides and generational gaps and cultural differences, and a letter that took half a century to find. Wooden died never knowing that Kareem doubted him, never knowing that his silence in the restaurant shaped how Kareem saw him for decades, never knowing that his quiet defense went unnoticed and unappreciated. Or maybe he knew. Maybe that's why he never mentioned it. Maybe he understood that the defense wasn't about being thanked. It was about doing the right thing when no one was watching, when there was nothing to gain. A good deed is its own reward. Kareem has written more than 20 books since retiring from basketball, about history, about social justice, about civil rights, about what it means to be black in America. But the book about Wooden might be the most important, because it's about something harder than race or politics or protest. It's about how we misjudge the people closest to us, how we reduce them to easy categories, how we assume we know what they think and feel when really we have no idea. Wooden made mistakes. He stayed silent in that restaurant. He didn't always understand what Kareem faced as a black man in America. He was, as Kareem says, on the sidelines when it came to racism. But he was also more than that, more than his failures, more than his silence. He was a man who defended his player without telling him, who supported him without seeking credit, who loved him without needing to be loved back. That's the lesson of the letter. You never know who's defending you when you're not in the room. You never know who's standing up for you when there's nothing in it for them. You never know what someone really thinks until 50 years later, when a stranger sends you a piece of paper that changes everything you thought you knew. Coach Wooden died in 2010. He was 99 years old. Kareem was at his bedside. After Wooden's wife died, he fell into a deep depression. For years, he struggled to find meaning. Then one day, he called Kareem. I found my sense of purpose again. That phone call meant everything to Kareem, just as the letter would, years later. I learned from this man from day one until the day he passed. And since he has passed, I'm still learning from my experiences with him. He was an incredible human being, the greatest scorer in basketball history, the winningest coach in college basketball history. 2 men who couldn't have been more different. and a letter that said more than 50 years of silence ever could. Who in your life has been defending you without telling you? Who has been standing up for you when you're not in the room? Who have you misjudged because you reduced them to an easy stereotype? Because the people who matter most don't always announce their loyalty. Sometimes they just write letters, and sometimes those letters take 50 years to find. Coach Wooden never asked for credit, never needed thanks, never mentioned what he'd done. A good deed is its own reward. That's what 50 years of silence taught them both. That's what the letter finally said.